Welcome to the Motoring Podcast, your weekly discussion of motoring news. This is episode 590 on Tuesday, the 6th of August, 2024. Hello, I'm Alan.
Hello, I'm Andrew. And this week we'll be finding out how taking the metro lets you drive. In new car news, we stand forlornly holding our hosepipe. And in points of interest, even in a game, kids are mocking one particular car. But first, we have a smidgen of follow-up, and it is unfortunately for Toyota very bad news. The Japanese government, or through the Transport Ministry, has said that on-site inspections have uncovered, and I'm quoting here from a Reuters article, widespread intentional misconduct and irregularities in 7 additional models that had not been previously disclosed. We remember a couple of months ago, there was 3 car makers in Japan admitted that they had not followed the certification process for vehicles properly, i.e. they've got approval for certain parts in certain elements of the car, but those parts were not the ones that had made it to the final products coming off the production line. Mm-hmm. This is not to say that this made them unsafe or anything, but it just contravened what they had agreements for.
Okay.
I think they're still working on proving that there's no danger, there's no reduction in quality or standard. It's just a different part.
Basically, everything has to be recertified, but not just in Japan, in all of the other countries that Japan has agreements with.
Yeah. The 7 models that are additional here, most of them don't matter to us in the UK, say, but it does cover the RAV4 and it does cover the Lexus LM, which is the fancy
minivan
people carrier.
Mm-hmm. Yaris Cross as well.
That was previous one.
That was previous one. Yeah, sorry. This is additional.
Sorry, this was the new ones. Yeah. I was remarking to Alan earlier that the wording that has come from the Japanese government is astonishingly stern and strong for the Japanese to do this about a company. They are not pulling any punches here. They've got a corrective order the government has given Toyota to make, and again quoting, make drastic reforms to ensure appropriate certification operations. That's basically your last chance, is how I'm reading that.
Sort it out.
Yeah. What I'd love to know, and we'll never know, and it needs much cleverer people and people who understand Japanese culture and society far better than I or we do, is to work out whether this is a society issue, society culture issue. Is this a company culture issue? Is it a bit of both? Is it, how come this has happened? And how come nobody said anything that was involved in the process?
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, you have returned to the show, Alan, just in time for the beginning of the month.
Yeah, I absolutely planned my holiday just to be... No, I didn't. I do get upset if I'm not around for the registration figures, though. I have no idea why. I just don't feel anybody else does it properly. Nobody else does it just right.
Now you've blown your own trumpet. What do you want?
We have had disagreements about how much of this we include in the past, and that we've settled on what we've settled on.
Yes.
The UK new car market rose a whopping 2.5% in July to deliver 24 consecutive months of growth. In some of those, it has barely eked into being anything approaching growth.
And where it started was so astonishingly low
that, quite frankly, it couldn't get any worse. I mean, you do have to look back to 2012. And yes, even I can do the mental arithmetic to know that was 12 years ago before you reached the same level of numbers. And there's been a massive peak and drop in between times.
Yeah.
So, yes, well done, 24 months. But, yeah, you would hope so.
Yes, absolutely.
Battery electric vehicle uptake is up 18.8%. But it is behind the mandated magic proctologist-sourced number of 22% dictated by the previous government.
But that is only for July as well. That's not year-to-date. Year-to-date, it's at 16.5%, I think.
Yes, it is. But the overall amount for till the end of 2024 is expected to be 18.5% of update. Which, whenever I was saying earlier, whenever you look at it, whenever we started, and EVs were a fraction of a percent, is still really, really impressive.
Yeah.
It's really quite a rise. But then diesel cars dominated then as well.
Yep.
Diesel year on year are down 21.9% for July. Petrol down 5.9%, hybrid up 31.4%. Battery electric vehicle up 18.8%, as I said. And plug-in hybrids up 12.4% as well. That gives plug-in hybrids an 8.9% market share. Battery electric vehicles 18.5%, hybrids 14.5%, diesels 5.9%, and petrol 52.1% of the share for July.
Yeah, just to leap in here, I have seen a few posts and outlets saying, electric cars were 42% of the market. No, because a hybrid and plug-in hybrid is not an electric car. They are electrified, they are not electric.
Yeah. Once again, for July, private fleet business, fleet was up 13% in July, and private down 11%, business down 9.3%. People are not running out and buying new cars right at the moment.
It's got to petrify. I mean, it is petrifying the industry because the calls have come out again. But 62% is all in fleet.
Yeah.
And when they start to switch the taps off, because they will have filled up, they will have done all the renewing our fleets, there's going to be a massive problem. Mm-hmm. But start making cars people can afford.
Yes, and I think some manufacturers are really trying to do that.
Yeah,
we've seen that with...
Not long till we get some of those.
Obviously, Renault and Dacia, Hyundai as well, but
Peugeot,
some of the others...
Citroën.
Peugeot, Citroën...
Citroën and Fiat.
Stellantis, generally.
Yeah, but the sooner they arrive, the better.
But the Germans are just not... They're so off the pace right at the minute. They really are depressingly off the pace.
Yep.
Bestsellers...
They've gone back. They've changed their title again.
Oh, God, so they have.
And it's wrong. Dear SMMT.
I just read it at the top because I knew what I was looking for. Yes, it isn't. It's the most registered. Yes. Dear Mike Hawes. Number 10, 2,445 units registered. The MGHS. The increases are tiny through the Volkswagen Polo, the Nissan Juke, the Volkswagen Truck, and indeed into number 6, the Hyundai Tucson with 2,917 units. Volkswagen Golf passes the 3,000 mark, and again, tiny increments right the way up through Volvo XC40, Ford Puma in at third, Nissan Qashqai in at second, and then there is a small jump up to the Kia Sportage at number 1 with 3,999 units. I bet they're so mad they didn't register one more. 3,999 units registered. Again, between the top and the bottom there's just over 1,500 units, which is it's just tiny. But there's so many models now. Yeah, that's what you've got to expect, really.
Yeah. Should we do the spreadsheet of doom?
Yeah, it's not too doomy.
Well, some of it is for particular brands.
Well, it is for some brands, yes.
Yeah, Alfa Romeo is down 33%, Alpine is down 21%, Bentley is down 46%. They all sound impressive, but they're actually quite small numbers in reality. What isn't a small number in reality is Ford is down 31% from 11,248 to just 7, and just is inverted commas here, 7,814, but that's the second month on the trot.
Yeah, well, they're down 22% over the year.
Yeah. There will be linked in the show notes an article by friend of the show, Tristan Young, going on explaining Ford's slide, but also he talks about the rest of the market as well.
It's a really good article. I mean, the TLDR is basically Ford to have the Puma and the Cougar.
Yeah.
That's it at the minute.
Right, continuing on, the GWM Aura is down 29%, Lexus is down 22%, Maserati is down 54%, Mazda is down 18%. Then we get to Polestar, who are down 37%, Porsche down 37% as well. Skoda are down 20%, Tesla is down 22%, pretty rough month for them as well, and Vauxhall is down again. This is the two big brands that we expect in this country, but they are down 27%, so that's 7,452 down to 5,466.
Yep.
Grim.
But Vauxhall's biggest problem is its name and the model names. Still being the same because everybody has such a mental picture of them.
Yeah, and previous price strategies.
Yeah. Which
they can't do with an electric.
Well, exactly. And it's a tricky one. Now, Toyota, I noticed, down 13.6% as well. I don't know what's up with Toyota and Lexus right at the minute. Someone's going to go EVs, but I don't really think that's it.
It's not just that.
Just that. Right. Meanwhile, the good. Yay! A Bath up 103% even. BYD get the MG award and are up 848%. 768 units registered in July. Citroen up 19%. Cupra up 44%. Dacia up 34%. Genesis up 132%, which was good to hear. So many Genesis. I keep saying that just so that people are aware. But it's kind of funny they're filled in where Infinity sort of were. In Infinity, you just don't buy an Infinity these days, it seems. Jeep, 246% increase. Very few vehicles registered last year, so that makes a lot of sense. And of course, new models as well. Mercedes-Benz up 27%, Nissan up 30%, Peugeot up 31%, Renault up 33%, Seat up 21%, Smart up 329%. Again, the wonders of having saleable vehicles. Similarly, Subaru up 21%. That's all those cross tracks.
Yep.
Incredible to think. Subaru 120 vehicles in a month. And if you see the roads over here, I passed a Subaru dealer the other day that had 200 on the forecourt, ready for people to just come and buy. And they will. They'll have that turnover. It was a massive dealership, much bigger than you would expect Ford or Vauxhall in the UK these days. Absolutely bat poo. Volvo up 62%, and other British vehicles were up 38.94%. Andrew, why don't you take us to Audi?
Audi, the current MD, Andrew Doyle, is going back to Australia, where he is going to be the chief executive of the Peter Warren Automotive Dealer Group. He's going to be replaced by Jose Miguel Aparicio, who is coming from Audi Spain. He's worked in the VW group for, about 20 years, I think.
Goodness,
like
what a surprise.
Yes, but amazingly, it's not a German gentleman coming over.
This is true, yes.
They have branched out. He's coming over at a real tricky time for Audi. They are beginning, we'll cover this in new car news, but they are beginning to get some new product to try and flog, as opposed to the same old that's been around for quite a while because of various problems internally with Volkswagen Group, particularly software. I think he's got a lot on his plate when he comes here.
Yes, I would say so. It has been a tricky one for Andrew Doyle, not necessarily of his own making.
Yeah.
Or of Audi UK's own making. Yeah, there have been product issues, or new product issues.
Do you want to take us to the UK and the charging infrastructure?
Good news, everyone. There were 20,612 new EV chargers installed in the UK in the last 12 months. This is good.
That is good.
Yes.
That headline figure is very good to see.
However,
yes, details and devils.
The distribution of said chargers is not wonderfully even, and that is causing some consternation amongst people who live in the grim north. The challenge was here that if you take a number of chargers per 1,000 population as you measure, then London went from having 152 chargers per 1,000 head of population.
It's 100,000, yeah.
Per 100,000, pardon me, of population to 233 chargers per 100,000 of population, which was a significant increase. Other places, for example, the Northeast, went from having 63 chargers per 100,000 to 72 chargers per 100,000, which is not that much of an increase.
No. And the other thing is this is not talking about types of chargers either. This is just chargers.
Yes, this is just chargers. And one other thing that I noticed, which I didn't question you on earlier on, by the way, is that it's just chargers. It doesn't say whether they're public or otherwise.
No, it is all about...
It is public. Yes, public charge points.
It
yes.
is the public one.
So it's just, it doesn't say until like the 7th paragraph. It doesn't use the word public. There's some growth in Scotland from 73 to 103. There is practically no change in Northern Ireland and the Northeast, or even, to be honest, the East Midlands. It's very variable. However, what's good news for people in the Southwest, because everybody from London goes on holiday to Cornwall, then Cornwall in the southwest has seen a significant increase from 51 to 80.
Yeah.
Birmingham as well, by the way, I don't know, to make up for HS2 or something, is gone from 59 to 92 per 100,000. So significant steps there. Bit of a jump in Wales, bit of a jump in Scotland.
Whilst it's good the overall numbers are going up, the distribution is way too uneven at the moment. And the sooner that's addressed, the better. Otherwise, the fear, whether real or not, that some people have over charging or the ability to charge won't go away. And that will be another stumbling block on an already incredibly tough market to sell an electric car to people.
Yes, that sort of Yorkshire zone is really the worst hit of the lot, I think. I think there's that sort of chunk of the country.
Well, the M62 and the M6 up the west coast.
And the A1 and up the east as well. I was going to say up the right. Up the east as well. Similar dearth of them there.
Mm. Hopefully this will people will see this, and it's good that this is being spoken about. And hopefully people will see this and go, right, we have to fix that.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Fill in the gaps, folks.
Well, talking of people being quite clever.
And charging.
Yes, and charging. I'm going to take us to Barcelona. And I was just gobsmacked by this news, and it is that in Barcelona, they're going to charge EVs with recuperated braking energy from their metro trains. And I thought, what an incredibly ingenious way to do things. I love it.
It's that, and it's solar from the roofs of the metro stations as a bonus. But yeah, I think it's just going to be heat. Otherwise, we might as well make use of it. Yeah,
but that made me go, well, where else are we losing it? Because we've said this several times ourselves. After we get out of an EV and we're driving either a hybrid or, well, not hybrids, but an internal combustion engine vehicle, we do go, it feels so wasteful when I brake.
Yeah, it does.
What other things that we do can we capture the energy and maybe help take the load off the grids across the globe, wherever, that will help us to transfer quicker to an electrified future?
Yeah, there's only one of these stations so far. There are plans, obviously, to implement more of them. This new charging station is on the Rambla de Marina de l'Hospitalet. I don't speak Spanish. And it's close to the Line 1 metro stop at Bellvitge. B-E-L-L-V-I-T-G-E. It's not a tourist area. It is down towards the airport. Many motoring journalists will have been stuck in coaches on the road within half a mile of this, but never actually had any need to go any closer. It's there. It's down towards a sort of it's at the end of a metro line. So it is on the outskirts towards the airport. If you happen to be going looking for it, for whatever reason. Kilowatt hour costs 30 euro cents. If the EV stays in, depending on which connector you use, you can stay for either 30 minutes, 1 hour, or 2 hours, which is kind of cunning, really. I think that's quite clever. If you're on the rapids, then in and out, whereas if you're on a slow trickle, then you can stay for 2 hours. If you stay longer than the maximum duration allowed, you're charged an extra 40 euro cents per minute.
Yeah.
To stop people hogging it and plugging in and sitting there all day, which I think is a really good, it's a good way of doing it, that seems.
That is just one bit I was talking to somebody about this yesterday. That's one bit of the EV ownership side of things. I've still not able to get my head around that we're saying to people, and I know the reasons why, but I still can't compute it. We're saying to people, you can only fill up your car to 80%, then you have to move on. Because there's lots of talk about people staying that extra 20%, well, not the extra, but trying to top up to 100%.
Yeah.
It's a huge mental shift we have to make because we're never told, don't fill up your car all the way with petrol or diesel.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you're saying. Because really the idea is you have enough to get to the next charging station or to where you're going to park it overnight and charge there for cheaper, I think is a lot of it. And I know that that's not possible for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a strain moving from splash it full of fuel to always be charging is a significant mind shift.
Yeah.
And always be charging makes sense after a while. You realize, well, I'm just making sure I've got enough, and I'm making sure I've got enough. And then, when I'm on the cheapie, I can plug into a slow charger and leave it overnight, whether it's a slow public charger or whatever. But because that's one of the things is you don't always have to rapid charge.
Yeah.
And so you don't always have to be paying I forgot the name of the brand now. You don't always have to be paying for the
Ionity.
That's the one. The Ionity rates
Yes.
when you're charging. Thank you. You can charge at those slow ones for significantly less.
Yeah. But this is a really clever idea. I love it. And I look forward to seeing more of such things happen in cities and towns where they have that possibility, or even companies where their process produces a lot of waste energy, and maybe they can capture it, particularly if they're trying to run lorries or vans from their site.
The one for me is putting solar panels above car parks.
Well, yeah.
The upsides of doing that are incredible, both for capturing energy and also for saving the need to use as much energy whenever you get into the vehicle, whether it's an EV or not, and whether it's been charging or not.
Yeah.
Because, always having it in the shade or protected from the snow or the rain or whatever just makes a massive difference.
Yep, absolutely.
But more EV charging news.
Mm-hmm.
Milens, a joint venture between Daimler Truck, the Traton Group, and Volvo Group. By the time you've got Daimler Truck and Volvo Group involved, then you've covered quite a lot of trucks on the road.
Yes.
Certainly in the UK. They have got together and they are building a dedicated heavy goods vehicle charging hub, which is going to be the first of its kind in the UK. First phase of construction is expected to be completed in November, and it's scheduled to be operational in the same months. Obviously, they're going to phase it out. Where is it going to be? It is going to be at Immingham, inside the port. Immingham, just for those of you who don't know, because I had to go and double check myself, is between Grimsby and Hull, so it's lovely. It is also a massive container port, which makes it even lovelier.
Yes.
And last but not least, it's the point where quite a lot of offshore energy from wind and whatever else meets the land. There's a lot going for it here. There's lots of energy and a big chunk of grid that can be tapped into straight away, so there's no shortage of power.
Yep.
It's going to be busy with trucks coming and collecting and depositing containers, and it just makes a lot of sense. It's kind of handy for the M180, M18, and M1, and you're not going to go there unless you go into a container port. It's not worth the extra trip. The more you think about it and discuss it, you could hardly find a better position for it regarding infrastructure and traffic.
Yeah. And use case as well.
And use case. Well, exactly. That's what I meant by traffic. But yeah, that's a much better term.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting how the rollout across the country for heavy goods vehicles goes, because you need massive bays, obviously, because they're not going to unhitch the trailer, park that somewhere, then go up to a charging point. Whether we will get we'll have to get new truck stops just off motorways, I would imagine.
Yes. Sorry, I'm just adding that up. That's 8, 16, 24. And then that row at the back is longer. So it's about 40. The artist's impression here shows about 40 charging bays for HGVs. Yeah, you need to make sure there's enough space. The thing is, the truck stops and things, there is already an awful lot of space. It's just people fuel up and then they have to move the truck. Really, it's a case of, right, you park up and you stay with the truck. You don't have to move it again whilst it's charging.
Yeah.
You park it, and whilst it's charging, then you go have your shower, get some food, etc., etc.
Yeah. It's getting into that. It'll be the mindset shift for lorry drivers that car drivers have had to do.
Do you know what the challenge is there? Is that if you're taking your regulated 8 or 10 hours, depending on how long you've been driving, hope I've still got that right, then if you started charging, you can't stop charging because you can't move the truck.
You've taken up that bay anyway.
You basically have that bay for the time. So I don't know if there's going to be slow charge bays and fast charge bays. But actually, the driver's hours regulations come into it as much as the behavior, because you see right at the minute, what you do is you fuel, and that's you doing other work. Then you drive round, park up, and then you're taking your rest period, and you're not allowed to move the truck during the rest period.
Yeah.
That's something which I'm sure they've worked that one out. They must have put, there's no way they won't have, because that's the same across the whole of Europe.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know just how they would deal with that, but there we go.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it is a point that people won't understand or know about, so it's right to raise it. Okay, I am going to take us to Stonehenge, which is now not going to have a tunnel. Amazingly, bizarrely put underneath it, thankfully. Because of financial reasons now, the new government is going to scrap the Stonehenge tunnel, but not only that, they are looking at a lot of transport pledges, including the Arundel bypass, something in the region of $1 billion of, and this is a quote from the Autocar article quoting the new Chancellor Rachel Reeves, unfunded transport pledges that came from the previous government, or previous governments.
There did seem to be, over the last year or so, the UK government did seem to suddenly have a magical money tree.
Yes.
To be able to announce new projects. I don't know what they would have done had they remained in power. I think there would have been economic issues and all sorts of things that stopped stuff. But there did seem to be a magical money tree for new project announcements.
Yes.
And of course, if the magical money tree was found to not necessarily exist and these to be empty promises, then somebody at some point has to say, no, actually, this just can't happen.
Yeah. We won't find out the full extent of what transport-related projects are going to be impacted by this review and cut in spending until the budget is announced on the 30th of October, the autumn budget, that is.
Well, that'll be a fun day.
Yes.
I'm sure it won't just be transport projects.
No.
There were all sorts of things that got announced.
Yep. It's going to be,
especially in the last 6 months.
It's going to be a hammering. So we don't know whether that means it affects some of the promises made for potholes and things like that. We just don't know, and we've now got to wait a couple of months.
I imagine it won't. I would imagine that potholes and stuff, all of that funding will remain because that is there in its existing infrastructure, as opposed to, let's build a big new shiny tunnel.
Yeah, but it was a new promise, wasn't it?
It was mostly an old promise, but repackaged, wasn't it?
But talking of finances that are not going well, Alan.
Well, yes, RECARO Automotive, that's the car seat manufacturer, has filed for bankruptcy. We've seen the branding on seats many, many times. Goodness knows, I've had a few cars with them and a few cars that they've been fitted to, either a standard or aftermarket. They supply many major brands, including BMW, Ford, and Volkswagen. It was approved for self-administration by the Esslingen District Court. Nobody was told.
No.
It seems, according to local reports, no employees were informed that would be the case, etc. The trade unions are suitably angry because that's what happens. Now, it was sold and spun off by RECARO Group about 4 years ago to, yes, one of these private investment companies. It is very easy, especially in the motoring media world, to have a good hard dig at private investment companies because they're not always the best at managing their investments.
Well, there's plenty of examples of where it's not worked out, as one would hope.
However, an article from The Drive that we linked in the show notes pointing out that this is most likely caused actually by one of their major customers pulling out, probably one of the ones that was mentioned there, possibly a brand that is doing an awful lot of cost cutting on things, and that has caused the cash flow knock-on issues that have brought this to a peak. Now, it may be, of course, that somebody steps in and buys them up, perhaps RECARO Group again. It sort of remains to be seen. Worth mentioning, the kiddie seat arm, the aircraft arm, and the gaming chair, believe it or not, arm, are fine. They're not affected by this. Gaming seats and Aero are still owned by RECARO Group, and a kiddie seat is a licensed product from another well-known kiddie seat brand.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully someone will step in, possibly even RECARO Group, buy them back up again and get it going. I didn't realise that RECARO... No, it wasn't RECARO. It was BBS was for a while owned by Porsche. I didn't realise that.
Oh, right.
If they do stop producing, then this is going to cause challenges for other car makers who rely on them, as well as the aftermarket and the modified scene as well.
And the resto mod scene. Don't forget them.
The resto mod scene can go and jump in the sea.
Oh, I love doing that.
We have a special edition to record, and one of the things that was discussed or mentioned was resto mods, and we'll cover that at a time.
Can't wait for that. Right, I'm going to take us to the US, and Tesla is recalling 1.85 million US vehicles over the risk that the bonnet might flip open, unexpectedly, shall we say. They have issued this recall through the NHTSA, that's the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
And it must be bad if Tesla are issuing a recall rather than saying, no, nothing's happening, no, it's all fine.
Just a service interval.
Service update.
Yes, but they are being more grown up about recalls lately. I think they have been threatened behind closed doors.
And I think there's possibly a bit less interference right at the minute because somebody's bored of them.
Yes.
He's off trashing the rest of the world instead.
Yes. But that's not the only thing that they're being looked at the moment. NHTSA is investigating the autopilot update that they were forced to do because there was issues with it, with the vehicles crashing. And there's now been 20 reports of crashes involving vehicles with the new update.
Mm-hmm.
So that's ongoing as well.
Yay.
And don't forget, that one covered over 2 million vehicles.
Sorry. Apologies for the corpsing if you could hear it in the background. I just had this image of a trunk hood freedom event happening.
It's disruption for you.
Yeah,
disruption.
that is.
Disruption for the driver, that's for sure. Anyway, I think that is the end, finally, of the first part.
There's been an awful lot there, hasn't there? But yes, we have finally reached Guilt Minute, the quick break in the show where we ask for a tad of financial support to keep the lights on and the hosting running. If you feel the Motoring Podcast is worth a small consideration every month, then you can become a patron. Different levels of patron include different levels of commitment from us to you, including being able to watch the show recorded live. We also have a small range of merchandise in our spring store, from stickers to mugs and t-shirts. If you don't have any spare cash, and we do completely understand, then you can help us by following for free from a podcast player to receive every show as they're released, and by liking and rating the show in whatever way your podcast supplier lets you. If you've done all of that, and some of you do so, thank you very much, then the last thing you can do is to recommend us to your friends or colleagues.
Thank you, everyone that does. We do know you do.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. Well, yeah, we're new patrons this week. So thank you.
Oh, yes, thank you. Right, new car news. Alan, do you want to take us to the radical new model?
There's a radical new model? Where's the radical new model? The only time I see radical is in the headline from this Autocar article. The new Audi A6, which used to be kind of more like what the A7 was because it was a coupe, but they're changing all the numbering because why not?
It's been a month.
It's been a month, yes. Audi and their renumbering stuff. There we go.
I think somebody on the board actually has shares or owns a badge company, and they want a bigger dividend.
From now on, just to quickly explain what we're wittering about, in an Audi, if it's an even number, it denotes it's electric. If it's an odd number, then it denotes that it's internal combustion, plug-in hybrid, or hybrid.
Yes.
The A6 is now the electric one. What used to be the A6 will become the A5?
Yes.
I think it's that way.
Yeah.
And it's all very silly. Anyway, other than the name, the A6 looks like, well, it's the Audi equivalent of a BMW i4. So it is the 4 Series Grand Coupe.
Ugly.
Oh, no, I like the i4. It's the BMW I like. It's the one that I would actually have at the moment. It is that market slot. It is yes. a coupe of that sort of size. It brings with it a 466-mile range. You can get it in, it says estate and saloon, but it's fastback in estate models. It has an 800-volt architecture. There'll be a hot S6 model with 543 brake horsepower, which doesn't sound very much in terms of electric cars these days.
No, it's quite gentle.
And I'm sure the 543 horsepower will probably not be the model that gets you the 466 miles of range.
No.
It looks decent. I mean, the press pictures are highly doctored and some very dubious post-processing has taken place to them. So really all...
Just a bit.
Yeah, I mean, there's one of the estate version on a road, and it just... I don't want to use the term amateurish, but...
It's embarrassing.
It is not good. Take these as a heavy hint as to what the vehicle looks like, and I think that really I'm not prepared to make any final comment until I've seen one in real life.
What I will say, though, is that they're pretty inoffensive.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're not going to be offended by these.
No.
There's an awful lot of metal on the side, and there is an attempt to break it up. And actually, I think the pale colours work better because you can see some of the detailing a bit better, that to sort of try and lift the fact that, goodness, that side skirt goes an awfully long way down.
Yes. Just to give some context for yes, it's not an SUV. That is excellent. But to give some context for anyone who hasn't clicked the link in the show notes yet, imagine a Hyundai and a Ford Mondeo got very cozy together, and this is what they produced.
In a good way. It is not an unpleasant looking thing. It really is.
The estate is much better.
Yes. Inside, you get 5 seats, you get screens, you get all these kind of fun things, as you would expect from a sort of a relatively high-spec, mid-sized Audi, really.
Range-wise, though, it's important or interesting to note the 466 miles is much better than the competition.
It's 447. Oh, no, hang on.
That's for the estate.
That's for the estate. Pardon me, sorry.
Yeah, you lose 19 miles with the estate. But the BMW i5 has a max range of 356 miles, and the Mercedes EQE Saloon is 429 miles. So that's interesting how much further they are able to go with their battery tech, or the potential to go. Sorry, all these caveats.
Yeah, there are a couple of other things. There's 2 charging ports on it as well, which is quite an interesting thing. These are the interesting facts I can find. 2 charging ports, one on either side. You can charge 11 kilowatts at home from either charging port, but the driver's side can take up to 270 kilowatts. There are 2 powertrains. Entry-level cars will be called Performance and put out 362 horsepower for a 0 to 62 mile an hour time of 5.4 seconds, both of which seem remarkably sensible in terms of electric cars. The S6 will add a front motor as well, giving it 4-wheel drive, 496 horsepower in normal operation. If you use the launch control function, you'll get a temporary 543 brake horsepower, which means it will be a 0 to 62 time of 3.9 seconds.
There's the silly times. Although, to be fair, 5.4 is really far more rapid than most people can cope with.
Yeah,
anyway.
more rapid than I generally cope with. Top speed's 130 on the Performance, 149 on the S6. RS6 will also come as a reborn, as a pure EV, and it will have even more performance should you need more performance. Air suspension, blah, blah, blah. Big panels inside, optional side mirror camera things, and the deliveries will begin around the end of the year. Prices have yet to be confirmed, it says, but it's expected to be competitive with the i5 and the EQE, which start at £67,695 and £69,105 respectively. So I imagine it's going to come in at about £68,000. And that's the starting price.
Yes.
This is the kind of thing you buy on the salary sacrifice and have for 2 years. Anyway, do you want to talk about our other new car news story?
Yes. It's a couple of weeks old, but we've been saving this one. INEOS is now going to launch an exclusive versions of their Grenadier from the Arcane Works, is what they're naming this new subdivision, with bespoke technologies and finishes.
How's that sucker out now, huh?
Yes.
Note that this is coming just about the same time as they say they're not doing the Fusilier, the smaller electric off-roader.
Yeah.
Maybe Land Rover got something right with the Defender and knew something INEOS didn't, perhaps?
What they're basically trying to do is they want to tap into the likes of how Bentley make their profit, or so much of their profit, which is to make it so individualized. But that adds cost to someone like INEOS. That's going to add tremendous cost to their production. It's
interesting with it. So, I mean, this is obviously going after the Chelsea Truck Company type market. You can buy your off-roader and you can have stuff stuck onto it from the factory.
Yes, you can bling it to your heart's content.
Rather than having to take it to a third party. It's kind of interesting, this, because over here in the US, then INEOS, they have a presence. I saw one in Alabama. There is a dealer not far from me, but I've not really seen any local. I'll let you put two and two together on that one as to how many I think they're selling. But Toyota has just launched the Land Cruiser over here. So there's the fancy version, which is obviously the Lexus GX. And there is the less fancy version, which is the Land Cruiser with the 2.4 hybrid powertrain that's coming to the UK and Europe. The Lexus has a twin-turbo V6 instead of the V8. The Land Cruiser to start with is over $20,000 cheaper for a similar spec to the INEOS.
Wow.
Plus, it's a Land Cruiser, and there's a Toyota network everywhere over here. Certainly in North America, and certainly at hey, we're going to make an overlanding vehicle, or we're going to do something to go off-road, Toyota have just killed it, frankly. Unless you have some reason to not buy a Land Cruiser.
Or a Jeep.
Or even a Defender here, a basic white Defender, then why are you going to buy the INEOS? And you're quite right, on Jeep, I hadn't even mentioned the Wrangler just flipping everywhere. They are almost as popular as the Subaru Crosstrek. They're having to do this because on price, as a semi-utility vehicle, which is what they were sold as, or what they were being marketed as originally, it just ain't working. And it just can't work, really, given more established competition just going, well, no, actually, this is the price that we've always sold our vehicles for. Why do you want to buy that thing? It's got limited support. It's an unknown quantity. And it's got all those BMW bits that break all the time. Over here, for some reason, BMWs, I don't know if it's the fuel or the oil or what, but over here, the reputation is not for reliability.
Oh, wow.
It just seems a very strange thing. Over here, people think BMWs, Audis, Volkswagens break quite a lot. I don't know, it just is the way it is.
Okay, I think we can move on to points of interest now.
Yes, it's still me, isn't it? Sorry, I waffled so much in the last one, I forgot whose story it was. So yes, first thing in points of interest, as always, lunchtime read. And Andrew has dug out another cracker from the Driven to Write portal, which still says it's the world's least influential motoring site, which is complete rubbish. I'm sorry, I have to take serious issue with that statement.
Yes, such false advertising, surely.
And this one, Andrew, you've chosen one that's all about louvers on windows of cars, which is...
Yes.
Stick with us on this one, because it is such an unpromising topic.
Yeah.
And I thought, what the heck has he included this for? And then I started reading it, and it was actually, that's really interesting. I really like that.
That's exactly what happened to me.
It does not sound promising, but for goodness sakes, go give it a read, because it's really, really interesting, and it is.
And some of the pictures as well, the various examples are just amazing.
It's just really nicely covered. I hadn't made the mental leap between the original sort of source for this and then some of the other vehicles which are subsequently mentioned and included. And there's loads of pictures to illustrate it as well. Really, really good lunchtime read. Please do take the time to go and read it.
Okay, that means we move on to the list of the week, and it is from Autocar. It is a slideshow, and it works. Yes, thank you once again, Autocar. And it is titled Big Selling Cars Now Vanishing from Our Roads. And they are looking at popular cars from the 70s and 80s. And Alan, of the 41 slides out there, has one of the slides leapt at you more than any of the others?
Yes.
Do you wish to tell the boys and girls at home what it is?
It's the Peugeot 405, which continues to take my breath away all these years later. It just is a handsome vehicle. Pininfarina and Peugeot, and it still looks good. It still looks right. Many more years than I want to think about later than when it was first introduced. There are so many good choices in here, by the way, but when I was going through this was the one. Because some of them, there never really were that many on the road in the first place. But certainly Peugeot 405 used to be it was a very popular choice in the school car park in the early 90s.
Yeah. Oh, it's a cracking design. I've plumped for the Renault Fuego. One of my memories from when I was about 8 or 9, I saw one and I was just like, that looks like nothing else. Yeah.
It's always been a really good thing. First car ever to have remote central locking. I also like the turbo diesel one, which we never got in the UK, which had a power bulge on top of the power bulge. which is completely... I posted a picture years ago. Funnily enough, I was looking at one in the Lane Motor Museum the other week. I posted some pictures on the Insta, which in turn means on the threads and on the Facebook. Lane Motor Museum, you've probably all heard of it. Jim McGill does lots of the vehicle sourcing in Europe and elsewhere sometimes. And really, well, if you're in Nashville, by all means, make some time for the country music, but do go to the Lane Motor Museum because it's really, really good and interesting and stuff. But yes, they have a Renault Fuego there.
Well, Alan, as our online gaming correspondent, do you want to take us to the and final?
I am the last person to talk about online gaming. You are the more online gaming person. And again, so Fortnite, which I believe is a game played by the younger people.
It's an online free-to-play game that the youth today are very excited about.
What is a Fortnite?
Used to be.
So yes, anyway, some of these games, they pair up and buddy up with brands so that brands can have an online presence. And they've buddied up with Tesla and the Cybertruck. Did I call it that? I meant cluster truck to do this. So you can, if you have enough in-game currency, I really am talking about stuff I don't know about right now. In-game currency, you can purchase.
This is fascinating. I'm watching it. You can get the Cybertruck by following a set of challenges that you need to do in-game.
I thought you bought it.
But there is the opportunity to buy it as well.
Why? Sorry.
But
that's my general question about the Cybertruck anyway, is why.
Yeah. But what's happened is that an almost unique move, gamers who see the Cybertruck in the game then band together with everybody else, because the idea of this game is to be the last character standing. Mm-hmm. You kill all the others and you win by being the last one alive. And when they see the Cybertruck, they are stopping killing each other
and focus
to band together until they've eliminated the Cybertruck character or the character that's driving the Cybertruck, because they think it's such a ridiculous and stupid thing. And then they go back to carrying on killing each other. So
I saw a number on a number over the last few weeks last couple of weeks when I've been traveling around, and they just all looked awful. At one point, I had the misfortune to see an entire transporter of them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know. I was just a little bit of sick in the back of my mouth. And they've never once looked any good. The key for me to understand how much the admiration for the cluster truck had passed beyond us car people, and that it wasn't just us, was back in May when I was in New York City. And I was trying to cross the street just down from Times Square, and it was dark and it was starting to rain. And it was the most post-apocalyptic scene you can imagine. If you think of it was like something out of Blade Runner. Just the mist and all the lights and all the screens and everything. And a Cybertruck came through. And it still looked like rubbish. And somebody behind me at the crossing just said out loud and very loud, "God, that looks like a piece of," as it went past. And it was just like, oh, okay, it's not just us car people then.
Yeah.
This is a sort of general feeling, and I think that this really encompasses that. I just don't know why. We can go into, there's a whole load of psychology, I guess, behind this, and why one may procure one of these things if you want it for any reason other than to generate clicks.
Going back to the in-game stuff, though, that what's happening is that so many players are voicing, as quoted in this article linked in the show notes from IGN, with the Tesla content, they are voicing distaste for the addition, including from Fortnite employees. Robbie Williams, who is a Fortnite associate producer, said on Twitter, "Reminder that opinions are mine and mine alone. Destroy on site," and then use the middle finger emoji.
Yes.
Equally, Epic Games producer Kyle Wynn, because Epic Games owns Fortnite, came in and said,
I'm glad you're reading this out. This gave me a chuckle.
"Companies are made up of individuals with a variety of thoughts and beliefs." Then he went on to say, also, hard focus on site. They get a kickback. The company putting them in, they get kickbacks for doing these things. But I can't think of a more fantastic way that the games fans have expressed their distaste for a move by a company.
Mm-hmm. And games fans can be pretty vocal about stuff as well. I mean, they're even worse than car
They can be
folk,
vicious
really.
and silly, but this one tickled me.
again, I got to the end in the end finally, and it started Fortnite players, and it was like, oh, come on. And it was like, oh, all right, yeah, okay, but we'll leave this one in then.
That brings us to the
end. It does. Sorry, apologies for the amount of waffle from me. I've had 3 weeks worth of these opinions stored up. So it's been nice to get them out, and I've been suffering from podcasting withdrawal. Mm-hmm. Although it looks like, given our schedule over the next little bit, I won't have withdrawal symptoms for that much longer. No, we've got a lot to catch up on, a lot to record.
Yes, as a final thank you to both the co-hosts.
Yes.
Although one of them didn't actually turn up on the podcast because of technical issues at my end. But thank you to Rich Gooding and Daniel Puddicombe for stepping in and filling your seat and microphone whilst you were not here.
Much appreciated. I had my emergency podcast in a box with me just in case, but it turned out certainly last week I had no internet coverage at all. Don't ever stay in Horse Cave, Kentucky.
Okay.
Yeah, don't bother. Good Mexican restaurant, though, for those of you who were following that discussion that night. Good Mexican restaurant. Handy for Mammoth Caves National Park as well. Anyway, if you want more tourist advice, do get in touch. But don't forget that between now and next week, you can give us any feedback, share your thoughts with the show at Motoring Podcast on Twitter and Instagram, on Facebook, and on the contact page of motoringpodcast.com, the hub of all our activities. Remember, you can support us financially via Patreon. Please leave a review and rating on Apple Podcasts, or however your podcast app lets you do such a thing. Andrew, in the meantime, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Best way to get in touch with me is if you search for Crack Windscreen on Twitter or Mastodon. And also, I am on LinkedIn using my actual real name. And Alan, if people want to know more of where to and where not to go in the US, following your recent holiday, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Basically, any of the social media sites used by the over 35s. On all of them, I'm at AJP Bradley. Don't really bother with Twitter this week. I'm having a rest.
No. Yes.
I'm having a rest. Try the others. Threads or Blue Sky, whatever. Sorry, at AJP Bradley, which of course is BIADLEY, because you all get upset if I don't say it. We will be back very soon. But until then, I've been Alan Bradley.
I've been Andrew Clues.
And safe motoring.